Okay, everybody, welcome back to Your Crisis Coach with me, Fred Carroll, and Scott H. Silverman. How are you today, Mr. Scott H. Silverman?
I'm well, Fred. I think I'm doing better than I was last week. Michelle's going to be having her surgery 2 weeks early, so on the 4th of April, she's not. It was her scheduled date, and it's moved up to this Friday. So she's going to get her hip replaced after breaking her hip a year ago. And she was telling me that this morning she feels a little scared, and I said that's because you're normally going to trauma in an emergency. This one's planned to fix what they didn't get the first time. So anyway, so I'll be a caregiver again. I'm going to get my shirt out with my embroidered name on it. I got caregiver of the year last year and the year before. She broke her femur the year before that, Monica. So it's been a fun run. But otherwise, things are going pretty good. My daughter started her new job, and she's in New York, and my other daughter's busy with her clients, so she's happy, I think. So all is good. And we had some real rain this week. We got like an inch, and they closed
schools.
Down
there.
I know. Temperatures dropped below 54, and they started closing schools. I know.
Watch the icy roads in San Diego. It's scary. So today you brought a friend with you. You want to introduce your friend, or do you want her to introduce herself?
Well, it's interesting. Monica, do you remember how we met?
I think did you message me on LinkedIn or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. You messaged me on LinkedIn, and then we went from there to email, and you were like, let's do a podcast.
Yeah. I saw a couple things that you'd written and a couple of things you said. And I thought that you kept coming back to wanting to help people, not only as a professional, but also behind the scenes. And I just thought that was really a nice thing to hear, because a lot of people, as we look around the world today, aren't really doing anything behind the scenes to help anyone except themselves. So it sounded like you were a real giver. And before we let you introduce yourself, I just want to point something out to you. In your interview, I think the interviewer, that he was a lawyer, I assumed, he said something about when something happened, and you said, it was funny, well, I wasn't born then, so I didn't know what the date was. And I you know what I'm talking about? Something about your parents. And I remember growing up, my mom always made a point, you really need to know where your father and I were born. You need to know what year it is, because some days people might ask you. And I memorized it, and now I'm at an age where I've completely forgot all of it. So, they've been gone for many years, but it was just funny the way he said, how am I supposed to know that? I wasn't even born yet. Well, I'm sure somebody shared it with you along the way. So Monica, would you mind terribly introducing yourself? The bio that we had was, in Spanish, so I couldn't translate it. I don't know where Fred got that, but I'm teasing. So tell us who you are and tell us why you're here. And we met obviously on LinkedIn, and I was impressed. And, it took you about a week to respond to my request, but that's okay. Obviously, busy people, all you Academy Award winners. So we know you're very successful already. So talk to us about who you are, and welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. To be honest, I don't know where you would have gotten the intro in Spanish from, because I don't speak Spanish. But
that was a joke, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So I am Monica Ishak. I own my own law firm, the Ishak Law Firm. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I'm based in West Palm, and I'm very, very grateful, like I said before we were recording, that I get to practice in my hometown. I think that is something that a lot of people kind of take for granted. And I'm very grateful that I get to be around my community, my family, just like the best paradise, the best place ever, in my opinion. So I think criminal defense is my purpose. And that's kind of what you were referring to a little bit in the beginning, is that I am a giver in a sense that I want to help people. And I think that I'm good at it. So that's really what drove me, I guess I should say, drove me into being a defense attorney, and then ultimately opening up my own firm. So I've been in practice 1 year to the date. Almost tomorrow is 1 year anniversary, March 18th, which is exciting. So a lot has happened, a lot is happening, and I'm excited to see what's happening in the future. So I'm expanding, and like a lot of great things are happening. I'm just beyond grateful to be in the position that I am in. It's truly a blessing.
Can you explain to me what a criminal defense attorney is, but pretend I'm a third grader?
So I represent people that are accused, which I think is a big word for a third grader. So I would say that are said to have done bad things, and I help those people. So my nephew, he's turning 4 in a few weeks, and he says I help people get out of jail. So that's the best way I can say it.
Listen, I just want to know how people view it and how people see it. I know there's stigmas that come with that.
100%.
Being like you're a person that gets bad people. People think a defense attorney means you're getting all the bad people out, and stuff, and it becomes stigmatized by that. When it's true, when it's not true, you just find you get the innocent out. The people that
I don't know about I don't know about calling everybody innocent, right? Like I think there is a level of that like I represent guilty people as well, but it's just kind of, a win looks different in every case, and understanding that when you're in criminal defense is super important, because you can win a case completely by getting an acquittal or getting a case dismissed, but there's also a win where we can get a case dismissed via diversion for people who have never been in trouble before and this is kind of their first time, or getting a better plea offer, avoiding a mandatory minimum sentence. Things like that are wins as well. So even though somebody may end up with a conviction or some sort of punishment, it doesn't mean that those people necessarily are completely innocent, but it's still a win because I'm setting my client up, hopefully, God willing, for success, right? Like, I think, for instance, like people who are in, like, if they have an addiction, which is oftentimes I work with people who have addictions, and setting them up in a system that actually helps them and not sets them up for failure. Because I think that, addiction is not linear. And that is something that a lot of people, I think you're on one side or the other. Like people either think you completely,
yeah, I
get to
agree.
recover.
I could see how maybe, so it looks like a loss on your record, but it could become a win for the client because you are now able to provide them with maybe recovery based off of their loss, or off the loss in the court system. So it's very good.
As well as like comparing maybe the exposure where they're facing maybe 30 years, but they ended up with way less time and, whatever else they need. Each case is so different. So it's oftentimes like the way I approach things, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, is that I like to kind of understand my client and build a rapport with my client and really build that relationship with them to figure out what it is that they personally need, along with what the state is seeking in terms of kind of getting the case done. A lot of times if they see some issue with alcohol in the probable cause affidavit, or the victim's making some sort of claim that this person has a drug or alcohol problem or whatever, mental health issues, whatever the case is, I talk to my client and I see how they kind of feel about that situation and understand their version of the events, because then if it's something that sometimes they're willing to say, yes, I do have a problem and I need help, but like maybe, probation is not the best thing for me because probation is going to set me up to fail, which I totally understand. So one time a prosecutor told me when I was in misdemeanor court as a public defender, and she told me, you will not take probation if I wrapped it up in a Louis Vuitton bag for you. And I was like, I took it as a compliment. I think she was trying to insult me, but I was like, you know what? I think that means that I'm fighting like hell for my clients because obviously my clients are facing jail time. And if I'm like, certain clients shouldn't take probation, it's because I know that they are not going to be successful in that route. So each client is different. And I think that understanding what their needs are is super important.
Do you have a niche that you love? Like like to deal with, felony 1 DUIs or felony 2 DUIs, or people that are involved with, some sort of car accident? Or is there an area that you're really passionate about that you've really just falls in your lap, or you doing a myriad of different type of situations?
I do everything, but I do truly enjoy doing domestic cases. They are very messy because you get involved in people's relationships, but it's not that I don't take other cases. I'll take, the firearm cases. I'll take the other cases, the drug possession cases, trafficking cases, whatever it is, DUIs. But I find that domestics are enjoyable for me in a weird way.
Yeah, I don't know if I've shared with you. My daughter is a family law attorney
Oh,
here in San Diego, and it's funny watching her. She's just started her own practice
nice.
about
Congrats.
almost a year now as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's been fun to watch her grow, and when the referrals come in, and now she's talking about clients that don't want to do what needs to be done after they've made promises, and those who
Yes.
don't have a choice. And San Diego is kind of a small little big city, so the word gets around if you're doing good work. And she's like you. She really wants to get to know the client, and I'm in the my business is working with people who have substance abuse disorders and families in
Right.
crisis. And domestic violence is something I've been around a long time in the work that I do because of the customer that I serve.
Right.
So I'm kind of not familiar with it, because every case has got its own little nuances. But when there's
Mhm.
children involved, and when families become disenfranchised, and usually it's many cases there's substance use around it. One of them's drinking too much or out of control, or self-medicating. It's really hard to deal with them. And we're actually making a big sweep now with the courts to get referrals from the court system, because there aren't, a lot of people don't have a lot of money. And if they don't have insurance, getting help can be really hard. And we work a lot with veterans, and, untreated trauma, untreated PTS,
Yes.
things of that
Yes.
nature. I'm sure you see a lot of that as well. So what is it you like most about the work that you do?
So ultimately, I think it's the effect I make on people's lives. And that's what I was saying. I think it's my purpose. Truly, I believe it's my purpose. And the reason I was able to figure that out is because I stepped away from it for a moment. Bless you.
Thank you.
I was a public defender for a little over 3 years. And directly after that, I went into insurance defense, which was completely different, right? I was working with people who basically all the people that nobody wanted to represent, the people that had no resources or support from either, whether it's like family support or whatever. And I went from that to a company that I was, multiple companies that had multiple resources and all the things that would allow me to just solely practice law. Because when you are a public defender, you're not just an attorney, you are a social worker, investigator, and you wear kind of a lot of different hats in a way, because your client really has nothing. So you are like kind of their first and only like resource. So even though they may not see it that way, I saw it that way. It was like, what do you need? If you need social workers, we have social workers. You need investigators, we have investigators, and then obviously I'm your attorney. So that is, I went from one end to a completely opposite end, where I was working like a regular 9 to 5. I was doing billable hours. It was just like kind of a completely different setting, like corporate America, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to kind of shame that, because I think people have to do the job to keep society going in that aspect, I guess. But it made me realize that I really do love the effect that I have on people's lives. And it's not because of the thank yous or whatever, because oftentimes we don't get that. Especially at the PD's office, we didn't get that. And like, I think that it was just, I think I needed to really step away from criminal and public defense to see that was a purpose I serve on this earth. So, I really think that it's like a spiritual journey for me. I didn't realize that until later, and I had to kind of go through personal things to realize that as well. But yeah, I always say that we're always trying to, I think everybody's purpose on this earth is to help somebody else make it home, or we're all here to walk each other home, right? So I think home is back to our true selves, our creator. And when I say I'm spiritual, I'm connected to God. So, and I don't mean to kind of like impose that on anybody, but that's my ideology. That's why I move the way I do. And I think that God is love. And that's what I try to embody in every aspect that I can whenever I present myself. So, yeah, it's really like, how can I survive and walk other people home? And that was kind of a no-brainer when I realized that that was something I needed to do, was start my own criminal defense practice.
So take the other side of that question now. What do you like least about? Is that a longer list?
There is so many things that are hard about this job for sure.
Just the top three, because it seems like the things we don't like, we can make those lists in a matter of 10 minutes. But the things we love, it's like, can I have an hour? And I need a big felt pen so I can use large letters to fill up the sheet. But what is it that, just, when you go to sleep at night or you wake up in the morning, boy, I wish I could, or I wish that wasn't there, or how could I get a workaround? Or
so I don't know if there's like one specific thing, but there is just like, for instance, like, and these are kind of, I feel like this is kind of silly, but like really like tracking like people down. Like, I feel like I have to do a lot, like this job is a lot of investigation. Not just in terms of like what happened that night or whatever. No, it's like my client needs to figure out what program to enter into. So, and like, it's a lot of hand holding. So, and I want to make sure my client does the right thing. So I do the best I can to support them. And that oftentimes is just like a lot on me, because it not only am I being, am I needing to focus on like the legal work and the legal aspect of their case, but there is also an additional responsibility that I believe I am supposed to take on as their attorney. And a lot of attorneys don't see that as their duty. But I think that if you're going to kind of tell them they have to do something or they should do something, you should definitely lead them to the right place. So that oftentimes is hard, especially in South Florida. There's like language barriers and things like that. There's just so many things where it kind of just like gets in the way. But there's not, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say. It's kind of the opposite for me. Like, it's hard for me to pinpoint like one major like thing. Obviously, running a business has its own like hurdles aside from criminal defense practice, which has been kind of the new era I'm in, right? Because I'm like in my first year of practice, where I'm like, okay, I've already mastered kind of like how to practice law. It's like now I'm in my entrepreneur era, which I'm very grateful to be in, but there's just kind of a lot more responsibility that comes with that. So it's just making sure that I have everything kind of in place for my client to be successful. And also, having hard conversations with your clients are not easy. Telling them that they need to do something that they don't necessarily want to do, or telling them that it would be beneficial for them, and then having to accept it. Things like that. It's just, I'm, being the bearer of bad news. Like, there's just a lot that comes with it. It's not an easy job. And it's just, I kind of like had enough practice with it, I think, with those in that aspect. But it doesn't get any easier. It's just something that I've gotten a little bit used to. I've gotten more comfortable kind of being the bearer of bad news, I guess. So, yeah, I guess that would be it.
Well, that all makes sense and stuff. I would assume from a political standpoint, without knowing your affiliations or how you look at it, but it must be difficult for you to watch in considering your career, because just like the only problems I have is the way I guess the intent versus the way they implement the plan is where I struggle. So I'm sure you're all for criminals being removed from the streets and stuff. But I don't know. Do you struggle with the way it's being done in a political sense?
100%. I'm definitely anti-incarceration for many of the crimes. I don't think, I don't know if there's any right answer to this, because I think everything is trial and error, but there's only been one way for so long. So, and clearly that's not working if you look at the statistics based off of like the United States incarceration rates and like the rest of the world, right? Like there's a higher recidivism rate in America than other countries. So I think if we were to set people up to be more in a rehabilitation state, I think whether it's, addiction or not, I think that would be something that would greatly benefit our society, because if you look at the research and how other countries do it, it seems like we are very behind in that aspect. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that even falls within a certain group of, I don't know if we want to get into politics.
Well, we could
get into politics.
Well, we talk about it. We do talk about it when it has to do with our personal lives. We aren't concerned on pleasing the left, the right. I'm a very centered person. Scott's a little more left, I believe, if I spoke for him. But I'm a center that leans left. And I have no problem with saying, I definitely don't have a problem with if I like something that was done. I root for it. I do root for success. I'll never root for failure. But I'm definitely not voting that way. Let's put it that way. And I don't like some of the things that are happening, but at the same time, I like some of the results sometimes. And I do realize that some things take time to weed themselves out. And I'm hoping that's where this leads to, but I don't have faith in it. So I'm very unbalanced at this point, but you're more than welcome to speak politically.
Yeah, I just think, you know what, it's interesting because like I really just hope for the success of our country. I'm not like, if you're not this way, it's like you're the worst. I think the new generation of young people are willing to kind of be more adversarial in politics, which is kind of scary because it just adds more division in the country. But I think there are things that are kind of like also at this in the same token, I guess I should say, is that
I interrupt you. I ran a prison reentry program for 18 years. That was the nonprofit that I ran. So most of the people I served were on parole or probation. And here in California, the recidivism rate is double of what it is the nation. And I remember the resistance the state had about legalizing marijuana, and the history of whether marijuana should be legalized or not was back in the day. Marijuana was the THC content was so different. Now marijuana, people are hallucinating and jumping off of roofs. But I remember when California CDC, the California Department of Corrections, actually put the word R at the end, CDCR. They put in rehab. And just 3 years ago, the Secretary of Corrections in California finally admitted, he goes, after 20 years of studies, we know that we have completely been doing corrections wrong in the state of California. I mean, wrong. And, putting people away. And because most people get worse, they don't get better in prison, because you have to find ways to survive. And so I don't even know if that's a political statement, Fred. I just think that the way we incarcerate, we're called the incarceration nation, the U.S. And I don't know if we're actually behind other countries, to be honest, Monica. I just don't think that the denial and the stigma, the systemic problems, people think that, when they want someone, they don't want to adhere to the rules, put them away. Well, but they're going to 95 get out. 95% people get out of prison. And when they do, they're coming out with a lot more ammo than they went in. So if we're not finding ways to make it easy for people to transition, we're going to have this continued loop, which I think takes place. And I know that Florida, because it was a drop-off point, and still I think still is, with the fentanyl crisis, and being right there on the ocean, and having people from different parts of the world living there, that it's that, and Texas, and Arizona, and of course, California, we're a border town. So it is a little scary. And then, of course, you look at the white collar criminals,
Yeah.
Even at federal level, that those that aren't even getting slaps on the wrist, if you will. I mean, look at our president and some of the people he surrounds himself with. I'm trying to get on Matt Gaetz's podcast because I want to talk to him about all that stuff that he doesn't believe is true. I said, how is it possible that they yanked your opportunity to take that job of AG and what was going on? So it is funny to not funny, ha ha, but funny, my God.
Ironic.
And I don't know how good of an advocate you can be when you use words like love and God.
I know.
that probably confuses a lot of people. Criminal defense, love and God, because to me, love and God are the things that we tend to miss. And if you're atheist or agnostic, call us 619-993-2738. We'll have you on the show. You can talk about it. Because to me, if I didn't have a spiritual guide and a program of spirituality, I think I'd be a lot worse shape than a lot of people are. Because a buddy of mine's a psychiatrist, also used to be a hostage negotiator in Ukraine years ago, and he shared something very interesting. The science shows that families who sit down to dinner 1 or 2 nights a week when the kids are growing up have some of the most stable environments for children to grow up in. Just simply by sitting at dinner, that little bit of time makes a big difference in how a child or a family infrastructure will have outcomes that are a little bit different, where single parents and things of that nature, and violence in the family, or one of the members of the family, the parent goes to jail or prison, because they don't come back real smiley and happy. No. And you look at the experts that talk about people in prison, the ones who are the most happy, that live the longest, are the ones who have strong connective ties to God and spirituality and love, which is hard to do when you're a gangbanger and all you've done your whole life is hurt others because that's what you were told to do. And now you're serving life and you're not going to get out anyway. So they've made the decision. They're the ones that are, happy, joyous, and free in prison, if you could say such a thing. And I met a lot of them when I used to do in-services at our state prison, talking to people. I go, look, we'll see you on the outside. I go, no, I'm never getting out, brother. Never getting out.
So Monica, do you see a benefit from, because you're so young still, and you're obviously well connected to the social media side of things, do you see a benefit for your practice by utilizing your Instagram and such?
Yes, because if I'm not reaching my client, I'm reaching attorneys or other people who will eventually refer me a client. But it's always somebody that feels kind of more aligned with me, which I'm very grateful for, because when I was a public defender, it was oftentimes I was representing people who did not want me to be representing them, not because of me personally. It was like I was just a public defender in that role, and they didn't want a court-appointed attorney, which is fair for them to feel that way based off of whatever information they had at that time. So the only thing I could do was show them that I would be different to them than whatever other people had explained to them I would be, or whatever they had experienced in the past. But what's great about kind of being in my own practice and being on social is that I get to kind of be myself and show myself. So that way I attract people who are attracted to me, and ultimately that guides me to people who are more aligned with me. So
yeah, I take care of everything. But one of the reasons I was asking about the social media, does this take you only? I do have a lot of friends that are in the law business, older people like myself, and they are on buses and still using the older way. Are you still utilizing that in your practice?
I'm not right now, because I feel like putting myself out there on social media is building my personal brand in a way that doing that, putting myself on a billboard, would not. Maybe when I have extra capital, I can do something like that. I just am not in the financial position to.
Right.
But
very costly.
Yes. So I think it's an investment to continuously put myself out there on social to ultimately, hopefully gain, my clientele. But yeah, I just think that I'm not in a position to. It's nothing. I'm not against it. I'm just not there yet. But that is something that I think is still great, because it's a part of, like showing up and being that person you go to for criminal defense or whatever. You just need to always kind of show up. So But
Just to give you an
everybody's
example,
on social all the time. Everybody's scrolling all the time. So it's
to
just
give
like
you an example for both of you, Scott too. My neighbor, I won't mention his name, who is maybe Connecticut's biggest lawyer, but my neighbor, I'm very close with him, and he spends $300,000 a month on
wow.
marketing alone. 300,000. His face is on every bus, every city bus, and all that. But very nice guy. But that's what I'm very interested in the marketing of anything, and that's what it cost to do that. But I will say this, Monica, and we could cut this out if you're not comfortable talking about it. But I mentioned it to Scott. The positive thing that initially grabbed me from your Instagram is your weight loss journey.
Oh, wow.
And how open you are about it. Is that something you're willing to discuss?
Yeah. Because you know what? I was just talking about this with someone. I think it plays a role in who I am today, like a big role. And it was something I didn't really recognize until I was having that conversation. That was the first hard thing I overcame by myself. Like, I was 220 pounds. For context, I'm not even 5'5", so I'm like 5'4" and 3/4. Very
3/4.
Yeah, don't forget the 3/4. But I'm under 5'5". I was 220 pounds. I was like 17 at the time when I decided to begin losing weight. And I didn't think when I began that journey, I didn't think I was going to lose. I lost 80 pounds in 8 months, but that was not my plan by any means. It was like, I went to go try on dresses for homecoming. I think it was because it was like high school time. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a size 18. I was always a size 16, which is like plus size. Both are plus size. But I was like, I need to lose a couple pounds. I needed to lose more than a couple pounds, but I was like, let me just lose a few to get to a size 16. So I ended up, I started dropping pounds. And I'm like, oh, I guess like I'm a size 12 now. I'm a size 10 now. You know what I mean? I started slowly, getting to the place that I wanted to be in, but I was not by any means expecting to be there. And then when I finally reached, like, I surpassed my goal, and in such a short time, I was like, I can do hard things, which is so crazy because I never played sports. I wasn't a stellar student. I was like a B student, C student. Like, I was just kind of like always just trying to get by. I don't know where that came from. I don't know why, but the second I like lost weight, I entered college during that time and I became like top of my class. It was like I became this completely different person that it instilled this like belief in myself that I was like, I can overcome anything, which I don't know if that's true. Hard shit happens all the time. Sorry, I don't know if we can curse.
You could do anything you want.
That's funny because I always say we make the rules. We're adults. We can do whatever we want, which is not always true, but I just tell myself that to make myself feel better. But it really made me feel like I can do anything. So I'm on my weight loss journey again. I didn't gain a crazy amount of weight, but I want to get back to being a little bit slimmer now. So
well,
how did you do it?
So at the time I was like doing a lot of cardio and eating like a lot of salad. And then after a little bit, I learned more about nutrition. I learned more about weightlifting. And now I'm like heavy on the focusing on my health, making sure I'm getting my protein in, making sure I'm lifting my weights. Before it was very much so like stick to your 1,000 calories and walk or run, like make sure you get your steps in, whatever the case is. But I had to slowly educate myself. I like went from like very overweight to like skinny fat or whatever people want to call it. Like I was slim, but I didn't have much muscle on me. And then I built a lot of muscle and now I'm pretty strong. So, I'm very like health is a big part of my life. I schedule my workouts 1 hour in my day. I make it an effort to like a priority to make sure that I get my workout in, and I make it a priority to get my nutrition in. And before I went through so many different stages where I was like, oh, I need to like starve myself. And then I would like binge like crazy. Like I had so many different phases, but I ultimately was led back to like, I need to be healthy. I need to focus on like what is best for my health. And that is actually something that helps me lose weight. So it's a win-win for me.
Yeah, and I think what the most important, the reason I wanted to, that I see a value in it to our show even is this: you have the ability now. A client looks you in the eye and says they can't. You could say you can because you know it's possible, and that it doesn't just result in weight loss; it's in life in general. Now
Yeah.
you're willing to conquer anything, but it comes down to the addiction. You know it's possible if you
Yeah.
work at it. If you want it, you could do it. And I thought that was important in the journey.
I will say the one thing about me at that time was like, the one thing I always thought I would never overcome was weight loss. I thought I was doomed to being overweight for the rest of my life because that was the body I was in for so long. And it's so true that you're saying that, because when I have conversations like that with people, oftentimes that's kind of almost, it's almost to a fault. Like, I almost believe in people to a fault. Not a fault, but it's like, I'm not prepared for the letdown. I'm like, you got this, you can do this. And then it's like, but it's not, like I said, addiction isn't linear, and it's not fair to have like hold people to that, because like I said, I went through my phases where I was like starving myself to binging, and then I finally got back. I had to realize kind of the hard way that this was the way to do it. But I think, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that have to learn the hard way. So I kind of have to have grace for the people who learn the hard way too.
Well, I congratulate you. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. I used to weigh 333 pounds.
Wow.
So I lost that. I had the gastric bypass 20 years ago, and I've kept almost 105 of it off this whole time. So I understand that, and I was 50 before I got to a point where, my doctor said, you're going to live a long time. You have great heart rate, good blood pressure, but your knees are going to go, your hips are going to go, and you'll be on a, one of those little, scooters if you don't do something. So I spent a couple of years researching, and I tried fasting and all that stuff. And I'm not into, I've been addicted to everything except exercise. And I'm hopeful that this year Fred's going to get me motivated, and I'm going to start doing something around that. Because
interesting, Scott. Interesting that you brought that up. Was in private. I was going to bring it up because this is all new information. You've never mentioned this on the show in the 5 years we've been doing it. It's never been mentioned, but I was going to mention because your wife recently shared a lot of photos because of when you met or something like that, or anniversary or something came up, right? And I noticed the difference in your size. These are pictures I haven't seen. And I was going to mention that I was shocked at how big you were in comparison to what I know. So it's interesting. That's what the show's all about, I guess.
Well, I have so many isms. I only want to share one or two every quarter. When you get to live as long as I have, and look, I was one of those people. I was going to end my life at 30, and that's, if I lived to 30, I was going to be happy. And the fact that I'm, just turned 71, I'm 41 years past my sunset in my mind. So each day for me is a present. That's why, a gift. I call it the present. So, to be able to hear people talk about it and share it, because when you do that, to me, it reduces the stigma. It tells people can be done. And when you accomplish that, and you're right, it's one of the few things that, you really have an easy time doing yourself, but it's hard to kind of figure out the mechanism and get on the track to do it, where other things require, when I went to treatment, I needed outside experts, I needed clinical support. And, when I wanted to increase my ability to be a better social entrepreneur, that saying, better to fail frequently and succeed sooner. You learn that over time. And now as a crisis coach and a life coach, it's interesting. I'm going to jump back on and ask you a question. We're going to have to wrap, but 95% of my clients, and veterans, professionals, they don't call me. It's someone who loves them or cares about them or is sick and tired of them that calls me, which is interesting, when Fred's talking about social media, because I would think in your line of work that, everyone wants a referral when it comes to an attorney. And when it comes to a dentist, they just want the best price they can get and the least amount of pain. But when it comes to a lawyer, and it's interesting, lawyers have the second, I think, no, it might be the first highest percentage of alcoholism in their profession. And I learned that when they had a conference in San Diego, and a big one years ago, and someone got up and talked about it, and there was someone in the media there who wrote about it, because it was not that, the American Bar Association keeps a secret, but at the end of the day, it wasn't public information until someone finally said it out loud. Law enforcement's very high as well, and of course, doctors and anesthesiologists is one of the highest. Anyway, so my last question for you: what have we not asked you that you think we should ask you, or you'd like us to ask you?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like that's such a interesting question.
He loves to ask it.
I did want to kind of make a comment. I don't know if there's a specific question, but I guess I have an answer.
Go ahead, make a comment.
Which is that I feel like when we're talking about like love and God and like the spiritual aspect of this, I think that, and you were talking about a lot of people who you have met, like who were kind of in prison, that were like, I guess you were dealing with people who were in the reentry program, people who were also there forever or for life. And I think that was kind of the point I had in my personal life, where I realized that maybe this is why I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, because it's almost like, and that kind of goes in with the social media and everything I'm doing. The reason why I'm doing everything I'm doing, it's driven by like being in a place, a very low place, where it was God or death. And I think that if you're not in a position to understand that truly, like a really low point, and like you said, like you were saying, like when you said like 30 you weren't going to make it, like that resonates with me, because I'm turning 30 in the next 60 days. May 22nd is my birthday, so it's coming up.
Are you looking at a calendar? Is that what you just looked at a calendar?
Yeah. I was like, what day is it? I'm like,
or she's hinting for a gift, Scott. I'm not sure.
Send me, Starbucks gift card, whatever it is.
We'll try to send you a text if we can remember. Write something down, Fred. We don't want to miss that one. By the way, you need to continue to work out, because I think I heard you say you like to walk your clients home. So it's probably good to be in good shape, in your part of the world, to walk your clients home, be in good shape. So you can always defend yourself.
Yeah, I don't physically walk them home, but hopefully I can walk them.
We got it.
I gotta get my steps in.
All right, Fred, you get the last word.
Okay, so I enjoyed that. I think you're a great person. I enjoy you immensely. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that I connected on social media with you, and I was able to see before. Usually I don't know the people coming in if Scott's bringing them, and this time I chose to do my job. So that's always nice.
Yeah. Congratulations on doing your job.
I did my job. And listen, it's very, I come from a world that with Scott and stuff talking about, and you talking very God. I happen to be an atheist, and I'm so comfortable within you people who speaks like that. Who speaks like that? But I'm very comfortable in these conversations.
A lot of MAGA says that.
Right. I love this kind of conversation, because I think it's important that we all get along. So Scott, do you want to drop your number again before I do my close?
Yes, please call me, yourcrisiscoach.com at 619-993-2738. And I do most of my work, Monica, virtually. I do a lot of interventions, so I expect to get some calls from you and see if I can help you with that family member who, suffers from a high-level disease of denial and doesn't want to spend $20 for a copay, but spending $1,000 a day for cocaine is easy.
Yeah.
So we're able to talk them down and realize, I can't afford that. Really? What you spent last year on your gambling problem and your 2 divorces?
Right.
Oh, yeah, maybe I can't afford it. So we'll keep the conversation going. All right, Fred,
Yeah, so
over to you.
So this is going to be it. This is it. We want to thank Monica for joining us. Make sure I'll have links down below in the video so you can contact her down in Florida, the warm weather of Florida. And if nobody has said they love you today, we love you. And this is your crisis coach with Fred Carroll and Scott H. Silverman, or with Scott H. Silverman and Fred Carroll, because he's the talent. I'm just the producer. We'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot. Stay with me.
Thanks,
Hang out there.
Thanks, Monica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was really nice.